does mentally stimulating activity protect against dementia? I was assigned the pro side, and I think that there is definitely some evidence to support that position, but I maintain some skepticism. And I think it's a very interesting topic. It is something that's certainly in the public eye as being relevant, but I think the public needs to be properly informed about the strength of the evidence and what stands behind it. There is evidence that participation in late life mentally stimulating activity is associated with delay of onset of cognitive impairment. But what's behind that is a much more complicated story, and one that in some sense is misrepresented in the press. It's not like people never, or people crawled out of a cave and then suddenly started to read Proust or Candide, but participation in late life stimulating activity is probably closely tied to what people had done all their lives, and includes influences of prior education and occupation. So the question really is that people are already participating in mentally stimulating activities, and they should be encouraged to do so. Now, as opposed to some other treatments that are discussed here, there's no downside to participating in mentally stimulating activities. So it's, you might say, a brainer that of course should be recommended. And the point is also that it's part of a larger package of health promoting behaviors that people who have good brains are probably doing anyway, in addition to physical exercise, to eating more or less in a healthy manner, avoiding smoking and things like that. It doesn't occur in isolation. Where true debate could be framed is whether these online for-profit cognitively stimulating games, or so-called cognitively stimulating games, should be used is I think questionable, and that was what my colleague who took the con side emphasized, and I agree with her. At the turn of the 20th century, only 4% of the population lived to be over 65. And since it turns out that that's the inflection point where dementia risk starts to rise, dementia simply wasn't a problem in the pre-20th century world, because people died. Now, with 12 to 15% of the population living over 65, a significant fraction living over 75, many people might spend half their lives beyond their employment years, and so staying mentally active is something that they need to do. Our society really doesn't have any formal way of emphasizing or providing for that activity. Well, should that be a governmental responsibility, or should that be a something that is done outside of government? I think it would be enormously expensive, and as we found with things like Medicare and defined benefit pensions, as people are living longer and longer, such open-ended commitments are unaffordable unless people pay for them themselves. But in principle, yes, it needs greater thought. I think the debate is in some sense misframed, that people do it anyway. I think that we should be promoting healthy behavior across the lifespan, and that includes into the retirement age, and should include physical activity, social engagement, and mentally stimulating activity. And that just needs to be a mantra for internists and people who take care of older individuals. And the benefits go well beyond the brain and the heart and joints and all other organs, basically.